Alright, hello everyone, welcome to the first tutorial in basic V-Ray rendering. So on this tutorial we're going to be applying the materials to the model here, as well as mapping the materials, which I'll show you how to do. So the first step into getting a really detailed looking model, before we actually start applying any materials, we want to make sure that the model itself is detailed. So I've already detailed this model for the example, but if you're using your own model, it's good to, for example, instead of using a wooden plank's texture just by itself on a flat surface, it's much better to actually detail the material. So as you can see here, this platform is made out of wooden planks, but I've actually gone and made individual squares to go onto it, so that when you do come to rendering, it just makes it look a lot more realistic. And same with the smaller details up close, like door handles. You see how the mullions on the window kind of stick out from the window. It's not just a flat surface. It really makes a big difference when it comes to rendering. So just keep that in mind if you're using your own model. And another thing for selecting materials for the render is to always have a reference image that you want to use. So in this case, we're making the Farnsworth house. So this is our render, this is our example image here. So this really helps when you're selecting the materials because it makes it a much faster process. So let's go ahead and choose the materials we want to use. So start by looking at this image. Looks like we need some white wood, some more natural colored wood, glass, and possibly painted steel or some sort of metal, and of course the curtains. And then we'll get into the trees and grass in the next few videos. So to apply materials, we want to go up here to V-Ray. So once it is installed, you'll have this menu here. You can go to Asset Editor. So when you open Asset Editor, it should come up with something like this. So don't worry about any of this stuff for now, we'll get into that later. So to start off, we want to add materials. So there's arrow on the left side here, we want to click that. And then go to materials. And here are all the built-in V-Ray materials, which I prefer to use all the V-Ray materials as everything is already mapped onto it and it just looks much better than using images. However, you can make your own realistic looking materials, but that's more advanced, we'll get into that later. So for now we want to find something that looks like the white wood. So probably under wall paint we'll go. This one here looks pretty good. Go add to scene. So you go right click, then add to scene, and it will show up here under the materials tab. You also click this right arrow here, which will show all the details of the material, but I won't get into that today. That's a bit more advanced, so we can just close that for now. So we use that white material for the wood here, as well as the steel I-beams. And then on top of this, we have a more natural wood texture, so we'll go find that. So go into wood and laminate. I think the wood planks here look pretty good, so go right click, add to scene. What else do we have? Then the glass, obviously, so you go to glass here. And there's a default V-Ray window, just called here glass window neutral, so go right click, add to scene. We'll just make sure that that's all the materials we need. Or the door handles would be made out of steel or something, so we'll go to metal. Aluminium brushed is a material I use quite a lot. Go add to scene. So those are the materials we're going to be using for now. Go ahead and close that one there. And we can close this window for now. So when you're making materials for your model, it helps to separate all your materials into layers. So let's say that all your I-beams are going to be the same material in your model. It helps to group them all into layers using the layers tab here. So you can see here we got all the I-beams on one layer. So that helps to make the applying material process much faster. So to apply the material to the whole layer, you can go ahead and open the V-Ray tab again. And we're going to be using the wall paint here. So you right click on it, you can go apply to layer, and where it says I-beams, go ahead and click that. And so now the material has been applied to all of the I-beams that are in this layer. Now for the mapping of material, actually you won't see this as much in the I-beams. So for the example I'll show you in the wood planks. So we want to apply the wooden texture to the planks. So we have the texture here. You can click this here to see which material highlighted. To go wood planks, right click, apply to layer. We'll add it to the planks layer. Now to see your materials in real time, you can click this arrow here and go to rendered, which changes the view to rendered. So now you can see where your material has been applied to. As you can see, the texture looks a little bit pixelated and distorted. So to map your material, if it's all on one layer, you can go ahead and lock all of the layers. Then select just the wooden planks layer. Make sure everything else is locked, then press Ctrl A. Now that all your wooden planks are selected, we're going to go ahead and add surface mapping. So what you want to do is go to the Properties tab here, and then click to Texture Mapping. Now we won't worry about going over the whole thing as it gets quite complicated, but what you want to do is click on Apply Surface Mapping, and then where it says Type here, you want to change this to Box. Now you can see that the texture has disappeared because it's gone really small. So you want to increase the size of the texture. So you do that using this tab here, which is X, Y, Z size. First thing you want to do is press lock. So it locks all these parameters here, which is pretty much just the scale of the texture you've applied. Now if your model is 1:1, which this is, the texture will be about 500. So just type in 500 here. Also, I should mention, if you do this in rendered view, it will slow down your computer depending on what you're using. Alright, so we'll have a look at that. It's looking a bit small. If your texture is too small, you can notice that's repeating in the render, which again makes it look a little bit less realistic. We'll go ahead and change it to maybe about 800. See what it looks like. And that looks a bit better. So now we'll go ahead and add the material to each layer. So another way you can add materials is by the object itself. So for example, if you don't have everything grouped onto one layer, let's go ahead and unlock everything first. So if everything's not grouped onto one layer, you can select it individually. So for example, I'll use the roof here. So select the roof and all the objects you want to make one material. So in this case, let's go back to our reference image. In this building, pretty much everything's white, even the stairs. So we can go ahead and select all the stairs. And once you've selected everything, you can go to Properties here, and then where it says Material, click that. Click this, and then you go to select whichever material you want, which will be wall paint. And we'll do the same texture mapping. If it's a simple material like the paint, for example, you don't really need to look at it all the time, so we can just go Apply Surface Mapping, type Box, the size here, lock it, and we'll set it just to about, it will be anywhere between 500 and 1000, so we can just go somewhere 700, and just change it to render view to double check it. So as the texture is just a simple wall paint, you won't see this in the rendered view. So let's go ahead and add this wood texture to the rest of the model. And then another way to add textures, so you can just unlock the layers that you want to apply the material to. So in this case, we'll just unlock the I-beams, the mullions, most of the default layer as well. And that should be it. So once they're all unlocked, you press Ctrl A. Already applied to the plank, so we'll lock that. And we'll do the same thing again. Material, change it to wall paint. Add the same mapping again. Alright, we'll go ahead and lock the layers again. And now we'll apply the glass material. Same thing. Most of the glass textures you don't need to apply the mapping for, because the material works differently than the non-transparent material, so you can just go ahead, click glass window neutral and add that. Let's go ahead and do the furniture now. So go back to our reference image and have a look at the furniture. It looks mostly just white with the wood texture on top of the table. So go back to our asset editor and add a simple wood texture for the table. This one looks good. So yeah, add to scene. So it's got to highlight everything we want to change, and so all these are just white. So we'll just change it to the wall paint material. Again, because in the render they're going to be quite small, to save time there's no need to add any mapping because you won't really be able to see it anyway. And just add our material to this, just laminate. And again, you don't always need to add the mapping. Sometimes it automatically applies the just default surface mapping, which kind of stretches the material onto the object in the best way that it can. So in this case, there's no need to apply the box mapping because it looks good enough. But if you wish to do a more detailed advanced render, you would want to go ahead and apply the box mapping to this. But in this case, it looks fine. And so the last material we're going to add is the curtains. So we go back to our asset editor, back to our materials tab here. And then V-Ray does have built-in fabric materials. So we'll just want to go with, I guess we'll choose this curtain material here, go add to scene. And you're going to want to use the rendered view to set the size. So as you can see, we need to add the box mapping for this. So apply surface mapping, change it to box. It's quite small, so we'll go ahead and change that to maybe 800. That looks pretty good, I think. Now let's unlock all the layers. I'll hide the roof. In this case, you won't really see the ground anyway, so there's no need to add the carpet material. I haven't detailed that in the model. But again, for the later on, we'll go through interior rendering. We're using the carpet material, and V-Ray really makes it look a lot more realistic. But in this case, you won't be seeing it in this model. So lastly, I adjust the material onto the stairs here. So it's using the same method again. Apply our box mapping. Yep, that's on. So that's all our materials applied to the model now. So we'll just double check. Go back to our reference image, and so some of the colors of the materials show up different. Oh, also one last thing I forgot. We'll just apply our aluminium material to this. So one thing is the materials can look quite different in this rendered view to what the actual render will look like. So for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to see what it looks like in actual V-Ray render mode. So we'll go back to shaded for the view. So we want to open the asset editor. We can close this side, and close this side. So we just got this here, and go back to settings. Now it should already be on interactive, but just to make sure, we'll just be focusing on this one here, this tab. You just want to make sure that interactive is turned on, so the slider is to the right, like this. And then you just want to click here where it says render with V-Ray interactive. And then it will open this window here, which is where you'll see your render. So this is more a better idea of what the materials will look like in the actual render. And if your computer's fast enough, you can kind of look around your model with the materials on it, and it will show you a live view of what the model will look like. So I'm pretty happy with this. Go back to our reference image. The materials look the same, but when we add our grass and our proper sunlighting, the colors will definitely look a lot different. And to close this, you can just press stop here to stop the rendering, which I've already done, and you can just close that. And so yeah, that's all for this tutorial on materials. So in the next tutorial, we'll be adding trees. I'll show you how to apply the materials to trees and how to modify the trees and add textures to them onto the model. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next tutorial.